What's up, you guys? It's Numi. I hope everyone is doing well. I wanted to get on here to finally talk to you guys about my step two experience. That experience. I have gotten some questions about, what I used to study, how long did I prep, and what did I think about the exam. Now, since I've taken the exam, there has been some changes with step two, so I won't know anything about that, but I can give you just my opinion on what my experience was with the previous exam. So, um, I took step two. Let me back up a little bit. So, actually, I was supposed to take step two in September. During that time, of course, we were all in this pandemic. My clinical rotations were changed for just a moment to virtual, and then after I completed most of those virtual clinical rotations, I ended up going back to physical rotations. And so during this time, I had to also start to prep for my step two exam. I was supposed to initially take it in September, but when I took my first practice exam, which was an MBME, my score was very low. It was like a 190, what was it? Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, it was a 200. I got a 200 on my very first practice. And, that allowed me to kind of pinpoint what I needed to do, which I was really, thinking that would be helpful. Now, before taking this MBME, of course, you've completed most of your rotations, so you really should be able to do fairly well on the practice exams, and that just didn't happen for me. I was also doing UWORLD, which is held to be the gold standard to prepare yourself for step two. So I was also doing those questions as well. And, in my opinion, I still wasn't satisfied with my first practice exam because I was like, I've been kind of preparing, not dedicated, but just preparing by doing 40 question blocks a day and all of that. And here I have my first practice exam, and I'm still like not even passing because the passing score for step two is a 209. And because I had a low step one of 200, I set my goal pretty high. I wanted to get a 240 on step two, which I thought would be achievable because the average for step two is around 240 to 245. So, I was trying to be within that, average range. And, as the time just progressed and I kind of pinpoint where I needed to look up things and study on things. And I also kept a, like a daily log of questions that I would get wrong. And I tried to review that stuff too. I realized that I probably wasn't going to be able to take this exam in September, and I really needed to have like true dedicated study time. So I ended up doing bridge time with my school, and at my school we get to have about 20 weeks total of basically bridge time or leave of absence that the school gives us. Of course, if you take a lot of weeks off, it will push back your graduation. I did not want that to happen to me. So I reached out to my clinical coordinator, and she allowed me 2 weeks of bridge time, and she said that would still keep me graduating on time. So I decided to do that. And then I moved my test to October, I think it was maybe the second or third. And so that gave me basically about a good 3-4 weeks to study for it that was dedicated. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make sure that I'm ready for this exam. So what I would do is I would continue my blocks of UWorld. I finally finished UWorld, by the way. I ended up going through UWorld like 3 times. And after doing that and reviewing my log that I made, I took another MBME exam. and my score only went up like 10 points. So it was an increase, but it wasn't a good enough increase in my opinion, because I had spent probably about a good 2 more weeks after the first practice exam preparing for another NBME. So it went up 10 points. I was happy about the increase, but I wasn't happy really, because I thought, okay, I should be getting much higher than that. So after I did that, someone mentioned to me, why don't you take UWorld 1 assessment to see really where you are? Because some people feel that the NBMEs that are put out are not really indicative of what you would really get on the exam. So I took their suggestion and I took UWorld 1, and when I took UWorld 1, I ended up getting a 209. So I got like a 210 on the NBME, 209 on UWorld 1 self-assessment. So for me, they kind of worked hand in hand. Even for step 1, when I took the NBME, my exam, I got the exact same score, roughly, give or take a few points, based on my NBME, not based on my UWorld. But that does not happen to a lot of people. Some people get the same score that they got on UWorld. But nevertheless, I did that assessment and it broke everything down, which was really helpful. So I was able to then say, okay, I need to really focus on these things. And so that's what I did for the next few weeks. And so each week I took another NBME, and I also ended up at the end of September taking a actual course through Divine Intervention. And I really feel like, you know, number one, I paid a lot of money for the course. It was $880. I'm not encouraging anyone to do that because he does have a website, divineinterventions.com or something like that. I have to find out the actual website and I can maybe put it down in the description. But if you haven't heard of him, it's Divine Interventions. His name is Divine. And he basically tutors and he creates all of these podcasts or recordings of different things that will cover high yield things from all of your rotations in second year and also step 2. He also does things for step 1 as well, but for my purposes, it was for step 2. So I ended up listening to a lot of his things, and then I signed up for one of his classes. The class was around 10 hours, and I took it on a Saturday. It was a 1-day course, and he provided basically about 500 to 600 questions that we went through, and just explanations for it. He did not give you an answer key. He just talked about each question really quickly, and you had to just take notes from there. And so it was really helpful, but I think that the things that he has online, you're able to get that, and it's just really all of that that's crammed into his 1-day course. So you don't necessarily have to take the course. You can just listen to his stuff that he has online and you will be fine. So after taking that course, I then took another NBME and I had like a 20-point increase. So I was very, very pleased at that point because I felt like I was really going in the right direction now. But the problem is stuff would leave my brain, you know. I was just like, okay, I have it now. And then, you know, I would go back and get another question and I'll be like, oh man, I can't remember. So, you know, that's one thing that I was having problems with, was retaining. So, and I think it was tired and that's why I was having problems retaining the information, but some kind of way I had to figure out how to retain and how to apply. So, after I took that last NBME, I felt more confident. And so my school also gives a comp exam, and I was encouraged to also take that comp exam, which I'm so happy I did, because for me, I just felt like, you know, the more exams that I was able to take, because I have test anxiety and all of that, I just felt like it was preparing me more. And so the following week, now this is probably about the fifth week, the 4th or 5th week, I ended up taking the comp exam because I had no more NBMEs to take. And I thought that I would have my score back by the time I was supposed to take my step 2 exam, which was like October 2nd or 3rd, after I switched the date from the initial date. So I didn't get it back and I just started kind of freaking out. So I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna take UWorld 2 and see, you know, what I get on there. And I'm tired and getting burnt out, and I know that I'm gonna pass this. Now, the goal that I set of 240, I don't think, or I didn't think that I was going to be able to reach that, but I needed to have at least a 20-point increase, because that's what program directors really want you to have. You know, you can have a low score, but you need to have a substantial increase for them to kind of feel comfortable interviewing you and potentially just giving you a chance, right? So that's what I ended up doing. And I got basically a 25-point increase on my UWorld 2. And so I scheduled my exam to take my exam. And I ended up actually giving myself another week. And I took it on October 10th, which was like the last time I can take it. And yeah, I did well. And that was my experience.